morning, world.
Good morning, world.
Assimilation. Is it a good thing? All right, before we get to that, why does Mike Tyson have the tattoos of two murdering communists?
Anyway, tell them why you're bringing up Mike Tyson.
This was a video we did a while ago, but we just got over a year ago, right?
Yeah.
But we just got an hour ago. We got this reaction to it. It was talking about Che Guevara and Fidel Castro.
Yes.
And of course, us being those dastardly capitalists, we're leaning one way. So this person goes and says, Bobby Garcia, 8288. Now, most of our comments on this have been negative towards us.
Yes.
But this one says, the goal of socialism is communism. Vladimir Lenin. If you don't know who Lenin is, USSR. Look it up. And then Bobby goes on to say, communism is evil. I know. I was born and lived in a communist totalitarian regime, Cuba. Fidel's net worth was estimated to be $900 million, according to Forbes. You guys were spot on about all you said. Congrats. But they won't listen. It's like arguing against a cult. And they all drank the red Kool-Aid, referring to Jim Jones in Guyana. God bless the USA. So this is a Cuban. God bless USA. I also had another one that I don't have on here. I didn't bring it up yet, but it was from somebody from Venezuela. Also along these lines. These are people that actually live in this country.
They were in
those countries. They were in totalitarian communist countries. They see what it's like. And for some reason, people in this country, again, like Danny Elfman said, you're just a middle-class socialist brat from a suburban family and you never really had to work. So all the people that are socialists in this country are people that live with their parents still, usually, or they're students. They've never had to earn a buck.
Right.
They've never lived in a totalitarian state.
Yes.
But anyways.
I love that because 98% of the comments we get on this one, like Brian alluded to, are very negative.
They think Che Guevara.
Very similar to the Joyner Lucas video, similar to a lot of videos we've done about BLM. 96% of those comments to us are very negative. And then you get that 2 or 3% who say, I lived in this, going through this. I know what's going on. Thank you guys for sharing. So,
and usually the people that are against this, that want to be socialist, it's because they're against corporations, because corporations have all the money. But for the most part, not always, but for the most part, these corporations, like let's say Bill Gates, not that we are big Bill Gates fans, but he built something, people chose to buy it, and he made his millions. Fidel Castro didn't do that. He came into power. Nobody bought into him, and then he kept himself in power with fake elections. He said he got 100% of the votes. Now, if anybody believes that, they're the ones who support socialism.
Right, but this isn't our topic today.
Nope, it's not.
We're staying tuned. What are we talking about?
I don't know. You got to introduce us, and we'll go.
All right, stay tuned for whatever it is we're talking about. I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian, and this is Cedric and Brian. Okay, today's topic is assimilation. I was watching something on Vice. Well, I was actually watching somebody watching something on Vice, to be fair. And this conversation really clicked. Cedric doesn't have any idea what we're going to do, so he's going to be reacting to it. But first, we want you guys...
Yes.
Help us. Actually, if you like us and you like our content, you can support our channel by buying a Cedric and Brian hat. So we've got different logos on the front, and then we have different logos on the back. Sometimes it's just has the American flag, right? So you just ask the hat maker to either put the Cedric and Brian face on it or the American flag. There's other things on there too, shirts, all types of stuff.
And like I said in my last video,
all in the link.
If you're going to wear your favorite sports team, whether it's basketball or hockey or NFL, you can wear a Cedric and Brian hat. We're about what's going on with this country.
Yeah, why not? And this subscriber right here, he's donning a Cedric and Brian hat.
Yes.
We appreciate that. All right, so we'll get into this. This is if you don't know, Vice has these YouTube content. I don't know if they have it on more than YouTube, where they bring in usually left-wing type stuff. They try to say that it's balanced, but we've seen it before. It always leans one way. But to their credit, they usually will bring in people from the other side. This one has to do with assimilation, and surprise, surprise, it's not a black and white issue here. It's focused on Asian Americans. So let's take it away.
The forgotten group.
Assimilation. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it a burden? Is it an opportunity?
I think assimilation is not just a great thing, it's a necessary thing. No society can hold together where people have nothing in common, they don't speak the same language, they don't practice the same things. And you may look at something like just food habits or what you eat and think that's fairly frivolous, but the truth of the matter is that on a broader level, when we're talking about more big picture things, differences in race, culture, religion, all these things, people have fought wars, violent wars, killed each other over these things for thousands of years. If America is to hold together, assimilation, not just good or bad, necessary. I don't think it's going to be possible for America to survive as a stable, functioning society if people don't, to some degree, say, well, here's what we're going to commonly agree upon.
But who gets to choose it?
So before we get to that, it's the opposite of tribalism. And we see the countries that still, especially in the Middle East, and when you talk about the Arab countries, you got the Sunnis and the Shia and all of that, they're tribes and they fight constantly.
Yes.
If you look at our logo at the very end of if you watch all the way to the end, at the end I put our logo with E pluribus unum on it. It's on our coins. You can look at a coin. From many, one. So it's about assimilating so we don't have tribal fights all the time. Now, unfortunately, if you've been around the last 2 to 3 years, we're going back to tribalism. And we, like this gentleman right here said, we can't survive if we live with tribalism.
Right.
You have to assimilate to some.
Right. And it's weird, like how America, and I don't know what we're going to get into next, but America seems to be the only country that gets the finger pointed at for doing that. Every other country, everybody expects you to assimilate to what's going on, the culture, the political agenda, what's going on in those countries. When we try and get that to do here, people call us names.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, though, that's what's happening in Western Europe is they're getting away from assimilation too. They didn't have to do it. They didn't have a Statue of Liberty that said, "Bring us your poor, your your huddling masses." They pretty much were homogenous, except for England, which isn't. But you had countries like Sweden and stuff that were very homogenous. Now they're taking in a lot of the migrants, and they're fracturing because they're not promoting assimilation. They're letting them live in their ghettos or whatever you want to call it, their sections, and now you have tribalism. That's not what this country was formed. I know there's bumps and bruises along the way, but that's still the best thing, like this gentleman said, to aspire for. But here comes a
rewind it a little bit.
I did.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be possible for America to survive as a stable, functioning society if people don't, to some degree, say, well, here's what we're going to commonly agree upon.
But who gets to choose it?
The majority culture, I suppose.
And what's majority culture?
The people with power.
And who's people with power?
Who's people with power?
White people.
Well,
There it is right there. White people?
You white people.
Says the girl with the purple hair and purple lipstick.
All right, you must be a Prince fan or a Barney the Dinosaur fan.
I just, but you knew it was coming. Yeah. So, it's.
And he's speaking to it. Whoever, I don't know who this young man is in the very well-tailored suit, but he's speaking to it. Not hiding from it.
Yeah, no, I know. So let's see what he says about that.
Agree upon.
But who gets to choose it?
The majority culture, I suppose.
And what's majority culture?
The people with power.
And who's people with power?
Who's people with power?
White people.
Well, I don't know if that's.
I'm gonna say it.
Yeah.
White people. It's okay.
I don't know if that's necessarily so true. I mean,
Wait, can you unpack?
Yeah.
Let's elaborate.
I don't think a particularly white, quote unquote, interest controls things like
in America.
Pop culture.
Do you believe white supremacy exists?
Wait, he said that they talked over him, but he said pop culture, which if you just watch the Grammys,
jeez, yes,
it's not predominantly white.
No,
at least not in today's day and age. So. I know they always go back to, you talk about the Rockefellers and all those people. Those are the white people that control the power. Well, they built their wealth.
Yes.
Yeah, but now you have the Obamas. You have the Kardashians. You have a lot of people that aren't white with a lot of money, and with money comes power.
A lot of power.
So anyway, it's always the evil white person, which said.
Yeah.
Let's elaborate.
I don't think a particularly white, quote unquote, interest controls things like
in America.
Pop culture.
Do you believe white supremacy exists?
I think there are people who believe in it. I think there's people who all believe that their race is superior.
So you don't believe in white supremacy?
Do you believe America is a white supremacist state?
No. Not at all.
And not found.
No white supremacist state would even like allow us to be doing this. Like I don't understand. So white supremacists, there's just KKK people walking. Actually, I go around New York City. I notice that like I guess Brooklyn a little bit different. Most of the people here are not white and they're doing their thing. So I don't understand.
What does doing their thing mean to you?
Going to work.
Are they making?
Working.
Are they making the same amount of money?
Are they making the same amount of money? I mean, what's the question? Are they working for it?
Right.
I don't make the same amount of money as Usher.
True. True. Or Rihanna from the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So, I mean, these people always throw this stuff out. Oh, the white people with money. If you watched our last music video, it was a white guy who looked like he was living in, West Virginia or Tennessee or Kentucky or something like that. Does not look like a rich guy. But these people assume that you're born white and you're rich.
Yeah. We've gotten away from the days, we just talked about it briefly, when the Statue of Liberty is in New York, Ellis Island, and immigrants saw that as a chance to come over here and better their lives, provided they work, provided they put in the sweat equity. And we've gotten away from that, but now people are more entitled. Like, well, just give me, I deserve this.
Yeah.
And I guess that deserves the bringing up reparations. Although that gets to be a tiresome subject, when black people are saying like, well, I deserve this. Like, well, no, you don't. You didn't do anything to earn that. My great-great-grandparents, they were slaves. They picked cotton. They worked in the fields. I did nothing. Even as old as I am, I was a kid born in Southern California who could go and mom and dad bought me a pair of Nikes and bought me nice stuff. And I went to a private school. I don't know anything about slavery except what I read and from what my great-grandparents told me about.
And your parents sacrificed so that you could do that. The same with my dad, who happens to be white. He was raised very, very poor. His family originally came from Kentucky. They came out here. They lived in L.A. They all shared one room. All the siblings shared one room. I don't believe his dad never graduated from high school, but he worked. He built things. He was a carpenter just to try to get the kids enough food so that they could graduate high school. I'm not even sure if my dad's brother graduated high school. I know they both went into the service in the Army. And then my dad took it upon himself to go to school, use the GI Bill or whatever it is,
Right.
and ended up being a success with hard work and gave me the privileged life that I had. So the same as Cedric and I, we're two different colors. Our parents sacrificed to make sure that we could have a head start. It had nothing to do with color. We're two, if you can't tell, adjust your screen, we're two different colors. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin. Anyway, let's go to the second part of this.
Statistically, it is true that Asians, right, on average, make more money, in terms of medium, make more money, better test scores, get into better colleges, all that stuff. I think the question is, why is that? And I don't know, model minority, whatever that label wants to mean.
That's actually a myth because we cannot be.
Well, no, listen. Well, let me finish my point.
Yes.
We need to observe what makes people successful and unsuccessful. And I think when you look at trends that are generally true in the Asian community, not of everyone, but are generally true, usually you have families that are sticking together. You have,
I love the faces. Look at these people don't want to admit to that.
They don't want to hear the truth.
And like the girl was saying, it's a myth. Yeah. No, look at statistics.
And he's talking about trends. He's not putting everybody in a monolith like I always like to talk about, because saying, well, if you're black, then you have to think this way, you have to act this way, you have to talk this way, and you have to be oppressed. Like, no, not all black people are like that way. He's not saying all Asians are wealthy. Right. He's saying for the most part, yes. If you look at data,
statistics, and then he's giving his reasons why he thinks it might be. He's putting out a hypothesis. And based on the number, Cedric has said this over and over again, if the family sticks together, then generationally it does better as a whole. So let him finish. But look at this guy's face next to it. And then the guy on his other side, he looks like might be Blasian.
Right. I think he's trying to understand what's going on. I can't really tell what his posture is all about.
But this guy in the front, so he's considered, I guess, Asian, because maybe because they consider like India, Asia, because he doesn't look Chinese or Japanese or Korean or anything like that. So let's go back.
Success. When I think when you look at trends that are generally true in the Asian community, not of everyone, but are generally true, usually you have families that are sticking together. You have, people are taught to work hard in school, not get into trouble. I think that translates to why Asians en masse are successful. And I don't think you have to be Asian or white for that matter to not have kids out of wedlock, not, commit crime, not cause trouble or whatever it is. It's just a matter of common sense. That's what makes people successful. And if that's so-called assimilation, having a nuclear family, buying a house, going to school, whatever it is, then yeah, okay, call me a pro-assimilation then.
I think there's a difference between assimilation and erasure.
Yes.
What does that mean?
I guess we're going to find out in the next clip. Like I said,
No, that's the last clip I have
That was
for
it?
you. Yep, that's the last clip I have for you.
And
Because
it wasn't erasure. And I've said this before. America, our home, and for those of you that are watching other countries, we appreciate you. We love you. You guys have your own culture there. You have your own way of doing things. But I try and use a microcosm example of things like this. Every single household has different ways they do things. And this may seem very small and very trivial, but if I came into Brian's home and Brian said, well, here in my home, we take our shoes off when we come in. And I sit there and I complain and say, well, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to assimilate to how you do things here. I have choices now. I can either stop coming over here, or I could assimilate and take my shoes off when I come into his home as he's requested. And I always say, as long as what you're doing doesn't violate God's laws or man's rights, which I know a lot of people that bugs because that's where the conversation stops, then do it. But for me to come into Brian's home and say, no, Brian, keep your shoes on. I know there's 5 of you living here, but me being the one, the minority in number, I want you guys to do things the way I do it.
But to bring back her term, erasure. So she's saying, basically, to use Cedric's analogy, if he came in and took his shoes off to come in my house, because that's what we do in my house, then in her mind, she's erasing her culture because she's adapting to my house. It's the dumbest thing in the world to say that. He's still going to be black when he walks in the door. If you assimilate to the common culture, and like he said, the majority of people there, and it's not the majority of skin color, it's the majority of how we've decided as a society to live, like not to murder people, not to sacrifice people anymore. That's not erasure. You're assimilating, and he's still going to be black, and I'm still going to be white. These people try to make this stuff racial when it is absolutely not racial.
Yeah, and I hate saying this. I know this bugs a lot of people. It's like, stay where you were. If I don't want to take my shoes off, stay in my house.
Yeah.
I can stay in my house. I can keep my shoes on. I can do whatever I do in my home that I don't do in his home, and I'll be fine with it. But for me to have the audacity to say, not only am I going to come into your home, or your country, I'm going to switch how you do things because I don't like it.
Yeah, I know. And again, people have choices. Now, if you're born here and you're like a lot of these people that, go to the Ivy League schools or just college in general, and they're being taught how to hate their own country, they still have a choice to leave. Yes, they didn't come here, and try to change it, but now they're within the system and they want to change it to fit their narrative.
Right.
And you know what? If enough people do that, and here's the scary part, because it's been trickling on for decades from when we were young, probably from the 60s, probably earlier, but the 60s, it's been a slow pace to where now we accept a lot of things that back then it's just like, no, that's not right. Some of it's for the better, and they call that progress, but some of it's regressive, and we've talked about this before. They're now resegregating schools by race, Asians, blacks, females, whatever the case may be. How is that progress? We're going back to what we fought against in the 60s. Mm-hmm.
And to go back, this just popped into my head, go back to the comment that you read before this video started about the young man from Venezuela who said, yeah,
he's from Cuba.
From Cuba. You guys are exactly right. The people that complain to us about that video, I'm willing to bet that 98, 99, 100% of those people live here in America. So if you're so impressed with the way things are done in Venezuela and things are done in Cuba and how progressive they are, why are you here? Why aren't you going to that country where things are so much better?
Right, because there's nobody. They did have walls to keep you in, but they don't have walls to keep you out. So go ahead and head on over. So anyway, I thought this was interesting. We mixed it up a little because it was from an Asian perspective, which kind of cracks me up, just in the fact that even back in the 80s when I went to school, the people that had to flee because of communism, they had to flee Vietnam. They came over here, didn't speak the language. Their work ethic was so good that they were already at the top of the class, like in things like math. Mm-hmm. And then they ended up catching up in English when it wasn't even their first language because the work ethic, their parents taught them this is what you do to be successful. And the family stays together. Sometimes they were broken families coming over because the fathers were killed, but the mothers were strong enough to say, look, if you want to be successful, You study, you get good grades, go to a college and do whatever you need to do. And you don't make excuses. I mean, they could have made excuses, right? They came from a country, they didn't speak the language. They could have just said, no, we just want our reparations. We just want things given to us. But no, many of them became very successful because guess what? They worked hard. And I hate to tell anybody out there who's not white people don't just get a silver spoon. There's some are, but the Obamas also got a silver spoon. They have to work just like everybody else. And yes, do some have to work harder? Absolutely, because everybody has different abilities. Everybody has different appearances. Somebody who is as good looking as Usher and talented probably didn't have to work as hard as somebody who may be ugly but also has a good voice. So there's a lot of factors when it comes to things. It's not just a black and white thing. There's so many factors. Everybody tries to put it in two categories. Right. You're either this or that. No, it's a spectrum.
Yeah. And that's the only thing I want to end it with.
Kind of like your gender, right? It's a spectrum.
Yes. Yes.
I'm kidding.
Well, Brian said it all comes down to hard work, persistency, consistency,
There's luck too.
Discipline, focus. But I think when you do those four things, when you're persistent, and you have discipline and focus, what's the old saying? You create your own luck.
Yeah.
And I know this isn't a biblical statement, but I always like to say it that God doesn't move a parked car. Start moving, and then you'll accidentally trip onto something or meet someone or come across a job where you can start creating your own luck and start creating that generational wealth for you and your family.
Yep.
But that was good. I'm glad you caught me off guard with that, but it was good.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sure it's not a coincidence that the guy that seemed to have the most coherent thoughts was also wearing a nice suit, right?
Right.
Because apparently he knows that, yes, sometimes you have to do things to be successful, and sometimes you need to look the part. And that's not unfair. That's life.
We can talk about this off camera when things go off. Have you ever seen a homeless Asian person?
I don't know, but we don't have a lot of homeless around here, so I don't know.
Well, we're not too far from Los Angeles. When I go,
Have you?
No.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not saying they aren't. I'm just saying for the most part, the vast majority of people who I see are homeless, white, black, things like that. But I've never seen a homeless Asian. If you guys have, let us know. We're just wondering. Okay. All right, we wrapping up?
Yep.
All right. This guy's going to Tennessee again on 22nd. I'll be here holding down the fort, doing all the work. It's so hard being black in this business relationship.
So, he shows up.
Make sure you like,
and then leaves.
subscribe, ring that bell, and continue sharing our channel with everyone you know, and keep working hard. Until next time, I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian. See you. Talk.
I had to out loud use some of the truth we could put out there.